Yeah, I was just saying, Troy, you and I were in the locker room last night, and I don't know that I was expecting somebody to say, hey, this is what the problem is, but this is a football team searching for answers, and we've got 2 games left in the regular season. Emmanuel Sanders told me we're still a work in progress. We're 14 games in. You are who you are right now. Troy, where do we go from here?
Well, the first issue is figuring out who the quarterback's going to be. They'll get a better read on that today. I would expect that if Manning's healthy and can get through the week, again, this is just my expectation that he would then return to the starting lineup. They need to get that issue resolved going forward. Who's the quarterback going to be? But as Emmanuel said, a work in progress. That's just politely saying that at some positions they're just not really that good right now offensively.
Yeah.
Shannon Sharp, I talked to him late last week about some of the issues with the Broncos, and when he was on those 1998 teams, they had 7 Pro Bowlers on offense. Running this offense. This offense has a chance to have no Pro Bowlers for the first time since 2007. So there's a talent issue involved here, especially up front, which my point is it's led to wild inconsistencies. Some games, some halves, they look like they could be in a Super Bowl contender, and then like you saw yesterday in the second half, it looks like they can't even get a first down. And I think that's, again, that some of the talent doesn't fit the scheme, and it's created these inconsistencies that are maddening, frankly, and has left this team where they could either be the number 1 team in the AFC or they could be out of the playoffs if they lose out.
Are we letting Gary Kubiak off the hook? Let's face it, the last 3 weeks he's gotten out-coached. We've seen teams make adjustments at half. They've stifled this offense. How much of this burden does Coach Kubiak bear for not countering whatever these defenses are throwing at him in the third and fourth quarter?
Yeah, I'd give him a pass on the San Diego game because they were up and San Diego's offense was futile, and they're just basically like, okay, we're going to grind the clock and win ugly, and they did.
Okay.
The Raider game, they refused to make, they did not make adjustments to the cover 2 and the zone coverage. And the way to adjust to that is to run the football. So they got trapped because, when you talk to players, they say run them out of the cover 2, meaning run the ball, force the safety to come into the box, to force them to adjust, and they couldn't run, and they were unable to figure it out on the fly of, okay, we're not running, how are we going to attack this zone? And there were some drops, but that's the problem. Yesterday, it appeared to me, again, Kubiak's he walks around this topic a little bit, that they didn't want to throw the ball 50 times, but that was the one way they were successful in the first half is throw, but they're up, and they got a little too conservative, and it was just a series of 3-and-outs, and that does deserve, and that's an indictment of the coaching or criticism of the coaching that they really, on the road in that game, should have stuck to what was working, which was throwing the ball. Once they tried to go to the run, they were ineffective. They started getting holding calls. Their down and distance was jacked up. They became predictable. All the scenarios we've seen, guys. So, yeah, that Kubiak, he's not blameless in this, and he wouldn't tell you that he is. And it just seems like they're grasping at times because this offense is built on running and getting the ball to the tight end, and they're basically near the bottom of the league in both those categories.
Yeah, Troy, it's all seems like it's a collective errors that are plaguing the Broncos at this point. But obviously, we'll get these answers later. But how dire is this situation now? Let's say they split their last 2 games. The Chiefs, Jets, and Steelers all win their final 2. This team could potentially be out of the playoffs. What is the sense you're getting around Dove Valley as well? We'll get some of those answers later today. But this is turned into a situation where we were crowning them division champs week 8, where they were so big in their division lead to here we are now with 2 games to go, and the situation is really, this is a must-win on Monday night.
Yeah, every game at this point is a playoff game for them. They put themselves in this position. The Raider game haunts them. You can't lose that game at home on 12-0 at half. That one, if this thing does fall off a cliff, they will point to that game. Like, how did they let that one get away? The game losing yesterday, it stung because they were leading, but no one expected them, frankly, to win that game realistically. They were a 7-point dog going into that game. So, but there's urgency, but there's not panic yet. And you don't want panic because that's not, that doesn't behoove you to be running around with your hair on fire. But there's clearly a sense of urgency. There's a sense of optimism that they can get T.J. Ward and Darian Stewart back because their defense has been compromised. They were great against the Raiders, but their safeties hurt them in that game, KO. And yesterday, Josh Bush had a mistake. on the Antonio Brown, the second touchdown. I mean, Chris Harris fell on the sword. His coverage of Josh Brown was late getting over. They need their two safeties back. That will help.
Right.
But ultimately, guys, they've got to figure out a way to be more consistent offensively. And if that's with Manning, then so be it. But you realize they haven't scored a point in the third quarter since the Indianapolis game.
Oof.
I mean, they come out at halftime and they fall asleep. And their defense is good, but, I mean, you can't ask them to be the steel curtain or the 2000 Ravens. I mean, that's just not fair to the defense.
Yeah. Obviously, staying healthy is a huge part of it.
Last question, Troy. We know that Brock Osweiler dinged up, MRI today. Did you hear anything more about that in the locker room? Is this a serious? Is this a precautionary? What are we looking at today when Gary Kubiak meets the media?
It appeared to be a precautionary MRI.
Okay.
And Brock's body language, his press conference, what he was doing in the locker room, he certainly wasn't presenting himself as a guy who needed to get to a doctor immediately. I mean, let's be honest, he's been waiting to his chance for 3.5 years. There would have to be something really wrong for him to say, okay, I can't go. And right now it's been, it's categorized more as a precautionary MRI. It was bothering him. It's his non-throwing shoulder. It helps. But both quarterbacks, their health will be an issue this week. How is Brock's left shoulder? And again, can Manning make it through a week of practice without any setbacks, without any issues to suggest he can play a full game on Monday? If they see enough, Wednesday, Thursday, I would imagine he'll be the guy on Monday night. But he's got to show it. He's got to show he's healthy to get that nod, and we don't know that answer yet.
A lot of ifs at Dove Valley. Yeah. Troy, we appreciate the time, and we'll see you later today, my friend.
Yep, you got it.